Julia, it is so great to see you again. And thank you so much for sitting down with me for this conversation. And you and I go back to PSI, known each other for years. But what I like to do is ask you to introduce yourself as in the role that you're currently in. And then we'll get into the questions about how you lead and manage.
All right, excellent. Thanks for the opportunity, Dan, and always a great chance to reconnect with you. Again, I'm Julia Roberts. I am the CEO of BRAC USA. It's a self-led organization that comes out of Bangladesh. It's the largest NGO in the world.
Awesome. So, Julia, how do you get the best out of people that you lead and manage?
Good question. So I think we get the best out of our teams and ourselves when we have mission alignment. When you are passionate about the mission of the organization you work for, that's what it all stems from. Having the shared values on the core mission and the values, seeing how you contribute on a daily basis to delivering on that mission. I think that has to be the foundation for any successful partnership. And that's what management is. It's a partnership. Next, I think when executive leadership has an approach that's motivating, the result that just instantly, results in better work. So with these ingredients, or without these ingredients, I should say, it's just a job. But with them, I think you can really find a fulfilling career. Additionally, I'm really steadfast that each person in any role to operate at their highest agency. It takes management, mentorship, time, support, feedback, and a safe space, right? Everyone has to feel like they have a safe space to test their capabilities, try out new roles, try out new accountabilities. And so I strive to find a balance between really encouraging people to be bold, but also not pushing too far too fast where they might set themselves up for failure. So the bottom line is getting the best results from ourselves and our teams is mission alignment, motivating leadership approach, and managing each team member in a way that has them performing at their highest agency.
I love that. Thank you. And I've seen you in our work together create really extremely cohesive, high performing teams. And now you're leading BRAC USA as an organization. How do you go about creating cohesive, high performing teams and organization?
Well, thank you for the compliment because you've also seen me when I've struggled in new roles and leading new teams. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned cohesion because I'm going to mention that as well. But it comes back again to, I think, shared mission and leadership approach. So, for instance, working at BRAC makes that very easy for me. Our global leadership sets the tone. And I've never experienced a global leadership like this in my 30-year career. Their commitment to being a learning organization and an environment where testing and even failing is encouraged openly and discussed very transparently. And that's set from the highest standard down, the highest level employee down, down the pike. This openness, does promote, the ability to really encourage people, aim high and think big. And together, without fear, I think that's the important part. It's setting it, think big and aim high without fear, because failure is something that we can expect when we're testing our boundaries. So it also comes to cohesion, like you're saying, right? And we're, getting everyone to work together, especially when you have a really broad remit, globally even, that can be really difficult. But for instance, at BRAC, we foster cohesion around our shared goal, right? So we support people to lift them out of poverty and reach their highest potential. So across BRAC, across leadership, across managers, we consistently work to build cohesion by reinforcing this point. And the goals can seem remote, right? So if you're working in the US and you're far away from the programming in another country, it's vital that each person on the team be able to see themselves and their achievements in the organization and how that translates to the work and the mission. And at BRAC, it's deeply personal. each team member's performance can translate to our ability to support people. Doing our best means moving women to, moving them to receive a chance to launch a business, send a daughter to school. This can be uplifting households out of poverty for life or protecting farmers from climate events, right? So these goals can seem remote, but again, it's our goal that each person feels aligned to the mission and can see their work translating to the impact in those that we're serving. And then I think we get to some of the more tactical levels of performance, right? At the managerial level. And I think day to day performance really hinges on clarity, right? So if you don't know exactly what someone expects of you, how are you going to deliver? And so these are clear systems of accountabilities. May sound like the boring part of the work, but when everybody gets behind KPIs and team goals and individual goals and clearly knows the expectation that they have or that we have for them and that they have for themselves to deliver, it's a much easier conversation and it's less gray. It makes it more black and white, right? It helps people move forward to higher performance. So I think in a way, the other point I want to add is again on that is you have to be willing to give consistent feedback, right? And so, yes, it's time out of every manager or leader's day to give that type of feedback. And this is staff emails and chats. It's really signaling to people that you see their growth and that you recognize that change in them. And so I always say you have to take notice and you have to take immediate action consistently in building teams. And this can be like constructive critique or helping when you see someone struggling, but also being really supportive of when people are achieving and making sure you call that out. It doesn't have to be something formal. I think the informal actually motivates people more on a daily basis. Take that minute to Google chat someone or to text them and say like, wow, you knocked it out of the park at that meeting, right? And you have to do that over and over, the same way that we would all want someone to do that for us, right? Help us when we're, failing or stumbling and like let us know we're doing good when we hit the ball out of the park, right? So I think cohesion, I think clarity in role, and I think consistent feedback, support, and positive reinforcement is at least the principle that I try to uphold.
Yeah. And I've definitely seen those from you as well. Um, so you identified some principles which are core to how you lead and manage people. Where and when and who did you learn those things from?
It's funny as I reflect on, I had to smile because I have benefited from amazing colleagues and I would say trusting colleagues, because I've seen so many people invest in me and at times where, they gave me the space, the empowerment, agency to work, encourage my agency to work at a level that quite frankly, I didn't have the skills or experience in, right? So, I probably in my positive naivety was like, yes, I can do that. And probably had no idea how I was going to do that. And yet they gave me the space to do that, right? And in each organization, each one that I've worked in, I've always felt that it was a safe space. I probably didn't know that it wasn't supposed to be safe to try and test. And that's at, the USAID mission in Guyana or at the US Centers, for Disease Control Global AIDS Program or within the Ministry of Health in Guyana. Each of those entrusted in me so much more, it like catapulted me into roles that I was not experienced in or probably ready for. But they gave you the space, they gave you the support, they gave you the encouragement, they gave you the constructive feedback, and they just kept you moving through. And so I probably learned more of those skills in my 20s, and I draw on those all the time. At PSI, I was given big roles, different regions, and sort of expected that, I would figure it out and that they were there to help, but they were like, we trust that you could do this. And so I think it's, and it's translating that into each sort of opportunity. And you have to like push yourself sometimes. Like you have to be like, okay, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm not asking for a promotion. I'm not asking for a new job, but sure, I'll take on that new task. Let me try it out. I'll take that on. And then it actually lends itself to finding some new path for yourself that you actually weren't intending to take, but it was a great opportunity. And so you learn something about your own skills along the way. And so even in my role now at BRAC, I've been entrusted with some ambitious goals, right? But I have a team that fully expects that I deliver, but is here in support and also appreciates that I'm going to fail. There's going to be times where I don't meet their expectations and that they realize success isn't a straight line, right? You can get there, but it's going to be, more like a bumblebee, right? Than a straight line. So I really think it's like I've seen that support and that approach through my whole career in my experience. And I think that that has helped me. I wouldn't be here if each of those leaders and those organizations didn't give me space, trust, um, challenge, and that consistent sort of like fallback. Like they were there to support me along the way. And so how do I then take that and build that culture in my own organization?
Um, so you've shared a lot of great lessons that you've learned and parts of your philosophy. Um, if someone were coming to you either as a first-time manager or stepping into a leadership role that is a stretch for them, what one or two pieces of advice would you give to them as they're stepping into either a new manager or a new leader role?
Yeah. Well, first be patient with yourself, right? And don't expect perfection. Your teams and those that you manage don't expect that you're going to be perfect. But what they will expect is transparency and support. And so I think don't be afraid to verbalize your own failings or when you have been challenged or when you need help, like verbalize that. That doesn't erode your leadership. It actually builds trust and it builds respect and it builds team cohesion. And so it takes time as well, right? You know, like we were talking earlier about consistent feedback and being there, to be a manager and a supporter and a mentor on a daily basis. That takes a long time to build up to sort of a tipping point, right? And so be patient, give yourself time, like realize that you're going to fail and just be honest about it, right? That doesn't erode your leadership and your management skill. I think it only builds it and the trust that you'll have with your team.
And so you talked about what stepping forward as a leader and sharing when you don't know something or when something is challenging.
Mhm.
So what is still challenging for you about managing and leading people, and where are you still trying to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting is I do wonder if we can really how we define what managing people well is, and can you measure it, right? It's more of like a qualitative than a quantitative, probably. But I do know that managing people as well as we can takes a lot of effort. And when you invest sufficiently in people's potential, everyone grows. You grow, and it can be one of the most rewarding experiences. Seeing someone like lift themselves to a new challenge and be working at the highest levels and achieving is the most exciting and rewarding thing you can have as a manager or a leader. So one thing that I think I can do better is consistently do that better, right? Like you have to carve out the time to do it. Yes, you have to reach your own goals. And yes, you need to be doing 100 daily tasks. But do I focus enough on that? I always wonder. And I think the other big challenge for me, and it's not shocking in this moment that I think development is at in general. We need to meet this moment. we have an opportunity to reflect and build back philanthropy and development globally differently and more impactfully is change management itself. I don't think that I've always been incredibly effective at change management and specifically around the communications of change management. I've I've had the opportunity to see other colleagues that think so thoughtfully and so robustly around communications of change management. And I don't think I do that sufficiently enough.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing those areas that you're looking to grow. And Julia, I wonder, is there anything that in this conversation I didn't ask you that as we've been talking about management and leadership, I should have, or anything else that's coming to mind that you want to share?
Well, I was almost worried you're going to ask me what my largest failure was, and I was afraid I was going to have to tell you. So, but again, no. I mean, I think that you asked really good questions that, like, you also helped me think through what I really define as good management and leadership. And so, I really appreciate the opportunity to share because I have been incredibly grateful for the leaders I have worked with and worked for, and I hope that I can, lead by example in ways that they led me. But I love what you're doing. I like that management practice is something you're trying to support others to invest in and grow with. And so I thank you for this opportunity. It was great to connect with you today.